Hi, my name is Robert, and I wanted to do a video to talk about the staccato shot, which I developed a couple of years ago. I wanted to make sure some of the parameters were known and how to do them right, because if you mess up, you could have a bad shot and then think that the method is garbage. So first, the staccato shot is a shot I developed using a sifter, the crew sifter in fact, and I was just messing around. I was trying to understand if I removed the finer particles and the boulders, do I get a better shot? While I waited for the other sifter screens to come, I decided to see how the very fine particles tasted versus the very coarse. And I noticed there's a big difference in taste. So I thought, why not stack them? So I stacked them on top of each other and I got an amazing shot. And so I worked at it a bit and I figured out that if I take the finer particles from the bottom, put it at the bottom layer, and then take the coarser particles, put it in the middle layer, and then these medium particles, use that as a top layer, I get the best shot. I use the 400 micron screen and the 500 micron screen, but you could make this type of shot with different screens if you wanted to. It would give probably different flavors, but these work best for me. One of the challenges is that I have to sift for quite a bit of time. For a 21 gram shot, I had to sift for around 7 minutes. I determined that the proper sift rate is about 3 grams per minute. And one of the challenges is that the particles, once they hit the 400 micron screen, go through very slowly. It's almost impossible to get grinds to go through something smaller. I've tried the 250 micron screen and you have to push the grounds back and forth to get them to go through. So one of the challenges is in making the shot is that if you don't sift long enough, some of those fines stay in that middle layer and the middle layer isn't optimal and you could have some channeling as a result. So I recommend, if you're trying this out, to sift far longer than you have to. Measure the amount of fines in the bottom until you stop collecting more. So then after that, when I'm preparing the shot, I use a pretty light tamp. I've been tamping somewhere in the range of 200 grams to 400 grams on a scale. I found you didn't need to tamp much in that because the fines really clump together and are very dense. And once you start the shot, I recommend pre-infusion. Obviously I use my beautiful Express machine. And I use 10 to 20 seconds of pre-infusion, sometimes a bit longer, like 30 or 40 seconds. And at the beginning of pre-infusion, the water will come in a bit fast and then it will slow down quite a bit. But as the shot progresses, it'll pick up steam again. And lastly, a lot of people like a 2 output to 1 input ratio shot, which is common across the espresso community. I prefer a 1-to-1 shot, or somewhere between a 1-to-1 and a 1.4-to-1 shot. So I would suggest starting in a very low ratio, like a 1-to-1. And if you want to do a larger ratio, I would pull a 1-to-1 and then swap out another cup to pull the second half. Because what I found experimentally is that the first 1-to-1 shot contains the bulk of what you're going to extract, typically somewhere between 18 and 22%. You can push it a bit higher if you do some of the more complex methods. And I've worked quite a bit on figuring out some more complex ways and then some simpler ways like the staccato tamped method, which is where you take a normal coffee grind and you put half of the dose in, you tamp it lightly, then put the second half dose in and tamp it just a little bit. That also improves extraction and taste. Of course, you don't have to use a sifter for this. You could use a niche. I published a work on how you can use a few different grind settings in the niche because the very fine grind setting, like the 0 setting, most of the particles are below 400 microns in size. So you can actually emulate this just with a grinder. And the best part is, because of that, anybody can try this out on their own without a groove sifter. So if you're interested, you can check out Medium. I've published over 100 articles on coffee, and I've done a lot of exploration on the staccato method and why it works, and why I think that it pushes the boundary of what we know about espresso.